Every king of Israel traced through their downward spiral. A heavy golden crown sits on a polished stone floor, shattered cleanly into two unequal pieces. The year is 930 BC. The golden age of King David and King Solomon is over. An entire nation has split down the middle, ripping apart a hard-won unity and drawing a permanent border line between brothers. To the south, two tribes remain loyal to David's lineage, forming the Kingdom of Judah. But to the north, 10 tribes break away entirely, establishing the Kingdom of Israel. Over the next 200 years, this northern kingdom would be ruled by 19 consecutive kings across 9 different family dynasties. And here is the terrifying structural pattern that emerges when you look closely at the text. Every single one of them failed. 19 rulers, 0 successors. Most people who try to read through the books of Kings and Chronicles get lost in a chaotic, dusty maze of unpronounceable names, sudden assassinations, and overlapping military coups. It feels like reading a confusing ancient battle report. But if you step back and trace the story chronologically, you realize it isn't a random collection of histories. It is a calculated, systemic tragedy. It is a masterclass in a single, unmovable reality. The external trajectory of a nation will always follow the internal compromise of the person sitting on the throne. The biblical writers even give us a repeating structural baseline to track this free fall. Like a heavy pendulum swinging through a dark room, the text drops the exact same sentence over and over again. He did evil in the sight of the Lord and did not depart from the sins of Jeroboam. To understand why the northern kingdom collapsed, you have to understand that first phrase. You have to look at the man who built the foundation of the fracture. His name was Jeroboam I. He was a brilliant, capable administrator who led the 10-tribe rebellion against Solomon's arrogant son, Rehoboam. God had actually promised Jeroboam an enduring dynasty if he simply walked in integrity. But the moment Jeroboam put on the crown, anxiety took over his heart. He looked at the map and realized something that terrified him. The temple, the religious heart of the nation, was still located down south in Jerusalem, the capital of his rival. He thought to himself, if my people keep traveling down south to worship at the temple, their hearts will eventually drift back to David's line, and they will execute me. So Jeroboam decided to fix a spiritual reality with political engineering. He manufactured a substitute religion. He cast 2 golden calves, set one up at the southern border in Bethel, and placed the other at the northern border in Dan. He stood before the people and declared a lie that would ring through centuries. It is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Here are your gods, O Israel, which brought you up from the land of Egypt. Think about what he did. To secure his own grip on power, he institutionalized compromise. He told his people that convenience mattered more than covenant. He set a structural precedent of rebellion, and every single king who followed him simply stepped into the groove he carved. Jeroboam's dynasty lasted for exactly 2 generations before the violence accelerated. His son Nadab had been on the throne for less than 2 years when a military commander named Baasha assassinated him during a siege. Baasha seized the crown, completely wiped out Jeroboam's entire family line, and established the 2nd dynasty. But Baasha didn't fix the foundation. He kept the golden calves running at Dan and Bethel. He ruled for 24 years, only for his own son, Elah, to be assassinated while getting drunk in a servant's house. The assassin was Zimri, a chariot commander who executed Elah, took the throne, and immediately slaughtered every male relative of Baasha. Zimri's reign is the shortest in the history of the nation. It lasted exactly 7 days. The army refused to accept a king who won the throne through a drunken assassination. They marched on the palace, and when Zimri saw that the city was taken, he walked into the royal citadel, set the palace on fire around himself, and died in the flames. 7 days of power, a lifetime of ash. Out of the smoke of Zimri's suicide rose the most notorious family line in the history of the ancient world, the Omri dynasty. A general named Omri stabilized the country militarily. He bought a strategic hill and built a new, heavily fortified capital city named Samaria. Omri was so politically successful that Assyrian records still referred to Israel as the land of Omri centuries later. But the Bible dismisses his geopolitical achievements in a single devastating line: Omri did evil more than all who were before him. And then came his son, Ahab. If Jeroboam established the compromise of the northern kingdom, Ahab completely weaponized it. He married Jezebel, a ruthless Phoenician princess who wasn't interested in a substitute religion. She wanted to erase the true God from the map entirely. Ahab built a temple to Baal in Samaria. He allowed his wife to systematically hunt down and execute the true prophets of the land. Under Ahab, the downward spiral became a vertical cliff. The nation wasn't just drifting, it was actively warring against its own identity. God sent the prophet Elijah like a lightning bolt to confront the palace, staging the famous showdown on Mount Carmel to prove that Baal was a silent, powerless fraud. Ahab saw the fire fall from heaven. He saw the rain return Elijah's prayer, but he walked right back to his palace and kept running the machinery of tyranny, eventually allowing his wife to murder an innocent man named Naboth just to steal his family vineyard. Ahab died on a battlefield, disguised as a common soldier, trying to dodge a prophetic sentence. An arrow shot at random pierced the joints of his armor, and dogs licked his blood from his chariot, exactly as the prophets had foretold. His 2 sons, Ahaziah and Joram, followed him, maintaining the family legacy of ruin until heaven decided the Omri dynasty had run its course. The instrument of judgment was a furious, fast-driving chariot commander named Jehu. Jehu is one of the most complex figures in the text. He was anointed by a young prophet with a specific mission: execute the house of Ahab and cleanse the land. Jehu moved like a whirlwind. He shot King Joram through the heart with an arrow, ordered Jezebel to be thrown from a palace window, and executed 70 sons of Ahab's lineage in a single stroke. Then he staged a massive ruse. He gathered all the prophets of Baal into their temple under the pretense of offering a great sacrifice, locked the doors, and slaughtered every single one of them. He tore down the temple of Baal and turned it into a public latrine. The text pauses here and commends Jehu for destroying Baal worship out of Israel. You think, finally, a king has broken the cycle. Finally, the upward climb begins. But then, the very next verse drops like a heavy stone. However, Jehu did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, the golden calves that were at Bethel and Dan. Do you see the structural tragedy of this story? Jehu was willing to destroy his enemies' idols, but he was completely unwilling to lay down his own. He was happy to erase Baal, but he kept the golden calves, because those calves were still the political anchor that secured his royal line. He fell into the exact same trap. He used a compromised religion to protect his human security. Because Jehu executed his mission against Ahab, God allowed his dynasty to last for 4 generations, the longest in Israel's history, culminating in the reign of Jeroboam II. Under Jeroboam II, Israel experienced a massive economic boom. Borders expanded, wealth flooded the capital, and from a human perspective, the nation looked like it was winning. But the prophets Amos and Hosea pull back the curtain on this golden age. They show that the wealth was built on the backs of the poor. Justice was bought and sold in the courts. The religious ceremonies at Bethel were empty, hypocritical theater. The economic success was just a thin layer of gold leaf covering a rotten structure. And the moment Jeroboam II died, the dry rot collapsed the house. The final 30 years of Israel read like a frantic, blood-soaked freefall. Jeroboam's son, Zechariah, was assassinated in public after just 6 months by a man named Shallum. Shallum took the throne and lasted exactly 1 month before a brutal general named Menahem marched into Samaria, murdered him, and ripped open the pregnant women of the surrounding towns to terrify the population into submission. Menahem managed to die in his bed by paying massive bribes to the rising superpower of Assyria, taxing his own wealthy citizens to buy his security. His son Pekahiah took the crown, only to be assassinated in his royal palace by his own captain, Pekah. Pekah took the throne, watched the Assyrian Empire begin to bite off large chunks of his territory, and was promptly assassinated by Hoshea, the 19th and final king of Israel. Think about a massive, ancient concrete dam holding back millions of gallons of water. When a structural flaw forms at the base, it doesn't break instantly. For decades, the dam looks solid, imposing, and permanent. People walk across the top without a single worry. But underneath, hidden inside the concrete, water is slowly widening the microscopic cracks every single day. To the casual observer, the collapse looks sudden, but to the engineer, the collapse was determined the very day the flaw was ignored. The 19 kings of Israel treated the structural flaw of Jeroboam's golden calves like a minor detail. They thought they could manage the compromise while building armies, trading wealth, and securing thrones. But history is a precise watchmaker. The timeline always demands payment. In 722 BC, the heavy boots of the Assyrian army surrounded the capital of Samaria. After a brutal 3-year siege, the walls breached. The northern kingdom was completely erased from the map. Its people were deported across the globe, dissolving into the ancient world like ink in water, becoming the famous lost tribes of history. The palace fell, the golden calves were carried away as scrap metal, and the thrones vanished. It is a remarkably bleak story. It leaves you feeling the exhausting weight of human political failure. But right at the edge of this historical ruin, the biblical narrative forces us to look higher. It shows us that while human kings look massive, anxious, and fragile, scrambling to protect their short-lived legacies, there is another throne that doesn't shake. The failure of the earthly rulers is designed to push our eyes off the palace and onto the true king, the one who doesn't need to engineer alternative religions to keep his people, the one who doesn't sacrifice his subjects to save his crown, but who sacrifices his own life to save his subjects. You don't have to panic when you watch the shifting, chaotic politics of our modern world. You don't have to anchor your peace in the integrity of human systems. The crowns of earth are standing on feet of clay, but the true king has already taken his seat. If this chronological deep dive helped you see the incredible, tragic design inside the history of Israel's kings, take a second to support our production engine. Subscribe to the channel, drop a comment below. Even a single word keeps us in the algorithm, and share this video with someone who needs to know that human chaos can never derail a divine promise. We depend entirely on you to keep these deep dives moving forward. Thank you for watching. Please keep us in your prayers. God bless you.